These laws actually are doing the opposite from protecting kids and protecting adults. They're actually significantly harming them.
Now people are being forced to leave, they're being pushed out.
I didn't think I knew peace until I started HRT. Um, Honestly, losing access to HRT would be devastating.
On May 17, 2023, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law Florida Senate Bill 254, which directly targets gender-affirming care in the state. This is one of the many recent laws that have targeted the LGBTQ+ and especially the trans and non-binary communities. Representative Ana Escamani, member of the Florida legislature, has been outspoken against this law.
I would say it's definitely one of the worst that I've ever seen, and just stripping away access to necessary life-saving care for people who need it.
This law restricts the access people have to care such as hormone replacement therapy, gender-affirming surgery, and more. It adds many more hoops to jump through to get approved for this care, both the side of the care providers as well as these people seeking out gender-affirming care.
My name is Ari Batista. My pronouns are they, them. And I started my social transition about maybe 3 years ago. And then I started HRT about almost 2 years ago. So maybe I'd say a little over a year and a half now.
However, with new laws in place, it has created roadblocks on Ari's journey.
Recently, with the new bill that got passed, I have to go sign some paperwork. And luckily, while here in Miami, my drive will not be super far. For other trans people in Florida, there were not that many places. I believe only two other locations here in Florida that have the location where you need to go sign a document, a consent form, to be able to access HRT. And for anybody not living near those towns or don't have access to a vehicle that could take them that far, would basically fully lose access to HRT.
But in other states, things are much more accessible for former Florida resident Star.
Well, I'm a local drag queen up here in Southeast Michigan. Since March, I've been microdosing testosterone. Aside from the insurance giving hassle because of prior authorization, my doctor was just like, here's testosterone, here's what it does. I was able to basically advocate for myself and say, I want this. And then I had an appointment, we talked about it, and then I would stay in about a week, I had it.
Despite this law's focus on physical gender-affirming care, many of these restrictions can take a mental toll on someone seeking out these resources. Dr. Natasha Polupoulos, an LGBTQ+ health expert, details the effects that come alongside this bill.
This has huge implication in terms of the mental and physical well-being of transgender individuals. We know that gender-affirming care is helpful and effective in mitigating negative mental health outcomes.
Based on a survey by the Miami Herald, almost 80% of other LGBTQ+ adults report that bans on gender-affirming care make them feel less safe as a member of the community.
When they're accepted, when they're affirmed, when they're in safe environments, they thrive and they do just as well as their peers. So these laws actually are doing the opposite from protecting kids and protecting adults. They're actually significantly harming them.
Based on a survey from Data for Progress, 43% of transgender adults have considered moving due to the anti-LGBTQ+ legislation in their state.
I don't feel like I have a need to stay. Many other states have significantly better. Even in the South, going up slightly north, I'll still have better chance of getting access to any healthcare compared to here in Florida.
For many trans and non-binary people, the next best option to have better access to this healthcare is to move out of Florida. But to some, this is their home and have no choice but to stay.
I can't blame anyone for making a decision to relocate because that's in the best interest of themselves and their family. With that said, for those who are staying, whether it's a choice they're making or they don't have a choice, because now every person has the resources to get up and leave. It's expensive to get up and leave.
As for the community, many people hold on to it as a form of support during these difficult times, like Miami's Transgender Day of Remembrance and Resilience. To them, it is one of the few safe spaces they have left.
My community saw me for who I was and who I wanted to be before I had the words for it. And that gave me the strength to kind of take those steps and say, yeah, I am non-binary. Yeah, I am trans. Yeah, I am trans-masculine. And I do want to seek HRT and feel a certain way.
Other events like TransCon not only provide resources locally, but it also offers a home.
So we say that gender affirming care is life saving, but what happens if you can't get that? Community is the most life saving care. There's nothing that we can do without community in these times.
While trying to keep a hopeful mindset, these changes to gender affirming care have made it much more challenging.
Today I went up to sign my consent form for my access to HRT here in Florida. It can be kind of jarring to read some things that you might have never heard of before. Even though most of it I was pretty familiar with, when I first started HRT, I knew the risks I was taking. It talks about how all the ways it can affect your body, and of course, since research isn't the best at the moment with HRT, some of it is very oh, it might, when necessarily not a lot of other trans people may have experienced those effects.
The fight against anti-trans laws continues, and while there is hope, much of the community remains unsure of the future.
My hope is that people do stay to fight this, because the data, the evidence, all major medical and psychological associations know that the way we can effectively help kids is by accepting them and affirming them.
Florida is not this dumpster fire completely. There are great areas here. There are great queer communities where we support each other. I don't think it's a fully lost cause. I think if people do keep fighting and talking to representatives, there is still a chance.
It is really hard right now. And it's, like I said, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I feel really confident that there's many of us who want it to get better, and we're going to fight to make that a reality.
I just want people to just be them. That's all I want. And I think that's all trans people ever want. And I think that's what, the community is owed, because that's all any trans person is ever seeking, is to be them.